Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So, if you guys saw my last video, then you would know that I was in an LGBTQ plus pride collab where we all made monochromatic dolls. And I mentioned in that video that I was actually working on a pride doll when I got invited to that collab. The doll that I was working on didn't meet the requirements for that collab because it was a monochromatic doll that we had to create, and this doll is very much not monochromatic, so I had to shelve this for a little bit, but I'm still happy with it, and I wanted to show you guys it. So happy Pride Part 2. She a little late, but like better late than never, you know. So what are we doing? So if you guys have been around this channel in the last couple months, then you would know that I've been a little bit obsessed with centaurs lately. I swear the next doll I'm making is not a centaur, so be on the lookout for that. But this doll is. I wanted to just make like my own centaur. I also wanted to make a small centaur because I just really like small, tiny little dolls. And I wanted to make wings. If you guys saw my Avia Trotter Centaur Pegasus Unicorn thing that I put out recently, you would know that I just kind of stole the wings off of My Little Pony, which worked out really well. But I wanted to try my hand at articulating wings, and I wanted to incorporate the rainbow pride flag in it. So I wanted to make a rainbow Pegasus Centaur tiny thing. Alright, what are we using as a base? We're using a lot as a base. So the first thing that we're using as a base is a doll that I think is a Barbie, but like an alien pixie that I repainted. That was like my second or third repaint, and she is a mess. I'm using her head. She has gloss all over her face, and because I have many cats, the gloss has attracted lots of cat hair, and she is just has seen better days, and her face up looks real funky because it was like the third one I did, so I didn't know what I was doing. The second thing we're using is a Cave Club doll because I just really like their bodies. Like, they're awesome if you want to paint a small doll. They're articulated, they're great. So I'm using that as the torso, and the horse body is a Winter Stables doll, or a Winter Stables horse, I guess. It comes with a little tiny doll, which is actually pretty great. Like, the little tiny doll it comes with is like pretty articulated, but has a creepy belly because it has like these raised dots on top of it. So we're not going to be using her. We're going to put her aside. Maybe I'll use it for something. But the horse is one of the only horses that I was able to find on Amazon that is actually articulated. I'll link it down below if you guys want to make your own centaur and you want an articulated horse for it. I start by taking off my old face up, and this doll has one of the cutest face molds. It's just like so stinking cute. But I cut off all of her hair, and I put her in hot water to soften up the vinyl so that the glue plugs on the inside of her head are easy to come out. This doll's neck hole is super tiny, so I figured my screwdriver probably wouldn't fit into it, and then I wouldn't be able to like rub around the inside of her head to get the glue chunks out. So I cut a big slash into the back of her head. Sounds violent. And I just kind of like scraped around the inside of her head that way, and it ended up working out pretty well. I just pulled the glue chunks out with needle nose pliers. Ugh, I just love how clean she looks because she was like a sticky hot mess. But I'm going to be widening the neck hole a little bit on the doll that we're using because it's a little bit smaller than the Cave Club doll. So I'm just taking an X-Acto blade and doing a circular motion just to open it up a little bit. And this is what it looks like on the... This is so cute. Y'all can't tell me. I literally, after seeing this, I bought so many tiny headed dolls and Cave Club bodies because I love this combination. This makes me feel awful, but I need to cut the horse's head off. I'm so sorry, Mr. Rogers. His face is genuinely cute, so it makes me feel a little bad because I think I mentioned this before. I kind of feel bad for inanimate objects, which is kind of messed up because I mess around with so many inanimate objects on this channel. But I wanted to see how the body and the horse body would look. I decided that the horse body was a little bit too long because the Cave Club body is so like tiny and petite. So I am first cutting the torso off of the Cave Club body, and then I'm going to be marking off a chunk of the horse because I'm going to be cutting this off with my saw. For the Pegasus wings, I am just drilling a little hole onto the front of the body, like where the shoulders would be. I sawed off the tail as well, and I couldn't get like all of the hair off when I was sawing it, so I cut a big chunk of it off, and anything that was still sticking out I just kind of plugged into the butt and it came out through that torso. Now to put it back together. So I took my aluminum foil and I kind of like wrapped it around this little bit in here. I think it like made the head go back and forth. And this is just so that it's easier to glue back together and there's kind of like a mass connecting them instead of trying to like glue the like hollow part of it. It just would have been way more annoying. So that's why I'm stuffing it with tin foil. And then I'm just hot gluing it around just to get like a base level glue in there. And I'm going over the hot glue with epoxy glue because it's way stronger. I'm gluing the torso to the body in the same way. So I'm using a base of hot glue and then going over the hot glue with epoxy glue to strengthen it. Now to make her look way less horrific, we're taking epoxy sculpt and I'm just taking like a big old chunk of it, like a little chunky thing, and I'm going over where the torso and the horse body connect as well as where the stomach is. And I'm just trying to make it one big mass instead of, I don't know, looking like I cut a bunch of parts together and glued them, which is what I did. So we're just trying to help her out a little bit. If y'all aren't familiar with epoxy sculpt, it is a very heavy duty air drying clay that just works really well for doll customization because, I mean, it is so heavy duty and it is so like permanent and strong. So you won't really ever find it like chipping or anything like that. This is the base layer of epoxy sculpt. It looks real lumpy and chunky, but we're going to be sanding that down, so don't you worry your pretty little head. I've been admiring Fairyland dolls a lot recently, which I guess like kind of everybody usually falls into that hole if you are into BJDs. And they have a centaur that is gorgeous. So I wanted to kind of mimic the sculpting of the fur that centaur has with this doll's body. So I'm just trying my best. I'm just making her look a little furry, some little nice fluffy flourishes, you know. But I'm doing this by just kind of putting a little snake of epoxy onto the hoof and then pinching certain areas and then going over that with a pin. The pins are God's gift to the planet, okay, if you sculpt things. It just makes like just nice little textures, and this really mimics fur texture really well. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I am so happy with how the fur came out. I don't have a $600 Fairyland BJD, but at least I have this doll, okay? And I love her so much. So I still felt like the top, the Cave Club torso, was a little bit small compared to the horse body. So I wanted to try to balance it out by giving her some boobie implants. Just hooking her up with some boobage, okay? I feel like I could have done better on these boobs, but I am happy with how droopy they are because I feel like a common thing that people do when they give dolls, you know, boobie implants is they make them like way too perky. I would recommend looking at boobie reference because natural boobies, I mean, unless you're going for a certain look, then like live your perky life, I don't know. Natural boobs are just like, they're not just like circles on your chest, you know, they're a little bit droopier. Gravity is a thing. Anyway, I sanded the doll and I decided that she needed like a bit of fur where the torso and the horse part connect. So I'm just taking a big chunk of epoxy sculpt, and I'm basically doing the same thing that I did on the hoof area to this area, just like way bigger. So pinching it and then going in with a needle and creating a fur-like texture. Alright, so we're going to be getting into the section of this video where this doll becomes a bit of a nightmare to work on. The sculpting was basically smooth sailing, but like everything after the sculpting was not smooth sailing. So you know how everybody talks about, or a lot of people talk about, how airbrushes are annoying to work with? Well, I agree. I bought one a while ago, I broke the gun, and I actually bought a new gun specifically for this project. I had issues changing colors when I went to paint the Centaur. So for the body, I'm going with like a mint green color, just because I saw Fairyland Dolls the green. I thought it was real cute. But I airbrushed the color on. It was a really nice process. And then when I went to switch colors, it wasn't a really nice process. It just kept bubbling for some reason. I've actually since figured out why it did, but it was just really annoying to troubleshoot. So that's why. I mean, I'm going to pull this thing out more often because I think I get it, but I ended up hand painting on the skin because I just gave up on trying to do it with the airbrush. Later on, I added a gradient of pink to the bottom of the legs, and I'm pretty happy with it, how it turned out. I didn't capture it on camera because I was just like so frustrated, but it was fun, like trying to, you know, do fancier things with the airbrush instead of just laying down paint. And it's not perfect, but I think it's pretty good for a first go. On to issue number 2. So I wanted to give this doll rainbow doll hair, and I tied a bunch of yarn to this thing right here. It's funny because you'll be able to tell. Okay, so all of the yarn that I'm using is like hella cheap except for the red, and I'm just prepping it how you normally do, but you can just see the difference once it's all straightened out because the red is just like very nice and shiny, whereas the other ones just look just dry as hell. I wanted to show you guys the needles that I used to reroot. Obviously my needle is messed up, so I need to replace it. I used tapestry needles, and I just cut the little tippity top off with a wire cutter, and I put that into my reroot tool, which is an X-Acto blade holder with the blade taken out. We're going to be giving this doll a very specific hairdo. I wanted to give them, okay, I've seen this before, I can't remember who, but I saw somebody give a doll a sparkle side shave, and I thought it was very pretty, so I wanted to try it. I began by painting the doll's scalp purple, and then I was like, wait a minute, she has a big gaping slash in the back of her head, so I sewed it up with a giant needle and my needle nose pliers and some thread. For reference, I'm going in through the neck hole and then out and down through the neck hole as I sew the scalp together. To reroot, I'm taking a little bit of yarn and I am looping just like the very top around my finger, and then I'm looping the very top around the reroot tool. I know that with normal doll hair you do it in half, but with this you just do the very top of it, and then I'm plunging that into the head. To set all that hair in place, I use Fabri-Tac glue and I squeeze that in through the neck hole. Usually I let it dry for at least a couple hours. The head actually split when I was rerooting it, which isn't the biggest deal. I just take crazy glue normally and a toothpick, and I just put that into the slit, and then I kind of press it together for a little bit and it fixes it. This is issue number 3. So you guys will see why in a little bit, but I hand painted the face with my airbrush paint, and yeah, I just painted it. It looked pretty great, but later it's going to be giving me some issues. So to set that skin tone color in place, I just took some matte varnish and I put it over it just to make sure that it had a little bit of extra protection. On to the sparkly side shave. So I painted the side of the head orange, and I chose orange because I had a really pretty orange glitter. I went over top of that with some glue and some sparkles. This is a super messy process, so just make sure that you're being real careful with it. I normally put a plate underneath and I just kind of like dump out the glitter. On to issue number 4, the face up. So this is actually take 1 of this face up. This is not going to be her permanent face up, but I just did the normal steps of spraying the doll 3 times with MSC, waiting 15 minutes between each spray and wearing a respirator mask. And basically the main goal that I had for this face up is that I wanted her to have really bright rainbow eyes and very bright rainbow, or just bright eyebrows. It's really interesting how smooth the process of beginning this doll was versus how not smooth the process of finishing this doll was. I do the final step of taking my Vallejo gloss varnish and putting it on the lips, and overall I was actually quite happy with how this face up turned out. I moved on to blushing the body. I wanted to paint the hooves purple because I just thought it'd be a really pretty color for them. And for the human part of the body, I'm basically taking the same tones that I use in the face, so pinks, purples, blues, and blushing the human part of the torso. I added a bit of metallic paint over the molded fur because I thought it would look really nice and kind of make it stand out. I also shade in the fur of the body with green pastel. To sort of intensify the pink airbrush that I put down, and also to help the green to pink gradient blend a little bit better, I'm going over top of that area with pink pastel. This is where the biggest issue came into play. I guess this is issue number 5 at this point. I put the head back on the body and I decided that I hated the combination. I just really didn't like the hair with the body. I just didn't like the hair in general. I thought it looked like kind of muddy and ugly. I also didn't really like the side shave, and the face was a little bit paler than the body as well. Also, a major thing, if you guys remember a couple videos ago, I talked about how my harpy, I used this same exact paint and the face went really yellow. And I didn't really know what the issue was. I thought it was because it was exposed to sun. And it's only gotten worse, and it's been in the dark. I like threw her in a closet. She has not been in the sun. So I thought that the issue was the sun. I don't think it is, actually. I think that the issue is that I hand painted this doll with the airbrush paint, and I also hand painted the Centaur doll's face, and that is also getting a little bit weird and yellow, if you guys can see there. It's not as intense as on the harpy's face because it's darker, but it's still weird and yellow. So I decided, and I've never really done this with a doll, but we're gonna be completely redoing her head. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. So I just picked off her side shave and I cut off her rainbow hair. I put her in a cup of hot water to soften up the vinyl so that, I mean, you guys know the drill. I'm just getting all the glue gunk out. It was really difficult to get it out, and her head is completely mangled by the end of this. Also, if you have ever touched wet yarn, it is gross. I don't know, something just really grosses me out about it. After the second time taking the face up off, her face looks very intense. It looks like she got like an acid peel or something. It's just very red. I don't know what's going on, but I think she's really feeling this. And her like scalp is almost completely taken off where I've rerouted it, so I had to go back over so many areas with crazy glue. So since the main thing that I didn't like about her was her hair, I decided that I was going to do the whole rainbow thing, but a little bit more subtle instead of like beating you over the head with it. So I'm just basically going to be incorporating the rainbow colors into each part of her design. For the hair, I'm using this pastel multicolored yarn that I have that is like one of my favorites. And I'm doing the side shave a little bit different. So I'm using a chunkier yarn this time. Or not a chunkier yarn, a chunkier glitter, and I feel like it looks way better. I knew that her hair would not withstand another reroute, so I am going to be gluing on wefts, or not wefts, because I didn't really make them wefts. I just felt like I didn't have enough time, even though there was literally no deadline on this, but I'm just taking the yarn that I brushed out and gluing that onto her scalp. So I again did not want to pull out my airbrush because it is nightmare fuel. So I'm going to be doing a color match to her body with pan pastels instead. This is a pan pastel in orange tint, and I am just covering her face with that. I really want to speak to how impressive pan pastels are. Like, I know that everyone knows that, but I only did one layer of it on her skin and it just completely covered up all of the crazy redness that she had going on. I'm going to be altering this face a little bit from the last one. I made the eyes really big. By the way, I would like to mention, for some reason, for like a little bit, like a minute into this face up, I am wearing a baseball cap because I don't know. I just chose to wear one. I did not even think about the fact that I was filming. I think because I did this after work, my brain wasn't working. So yeah, I'm making the eyes quite a bit bigger. I'm sorry, the baseball cap will go away in a little bit, I swear. I also made the irises a bit bigger as well, just to kind of lend into the whole cutesy look that I wanted. I color in the eyes white with a white pencil, even going over the iris. I know some people don't do this, they just fill it in with color, but I feel like when you go in with white first, it makes whatever color that you're laying down for the eye color brighter. I blush her on the face with pinks, reds, purples, blues, and browns. I color in the nostrils with a brown pencil. I'm just adding 2 tiny little dots, and generally I kind of like subtly color in the nostrils because I find that I don't really like when they're too colored in, like when they're like black and kind of intense looking, but just going in and adding a little bit of definition there I feel like makes sense because it is a very dark area of your face. For shading on the eyes, I kind of concentrated on the outer and the inner portion of the eyelid, and then very softly sort of blend it across the middle because I want it to be most intense in those areas. I'm going to be bringing a little bit more light into the middle of the eyelid, so if it looks very dark, we're just going to be adding highlight later. Hey veins, I love veins. So I'm just adding little branch-like pencil marks around the eyes and the sides of the face to create a vein-like look. I'm doing this with this incredibly light Faber-Castell blue pencil, and it's super sharp so that I can get very kind of defined lines for those veins, but this pencil is so light that it doesn't look too intense. I would recommend if you guys do veins, at least if you're doing them on a lighter skin tone like this is, to use a very, very, very light blue pencil, because if you go in with a darker blue, it can just look really dark and weird and creepy really fast. This pencil is borderline unpigmented. It's just a very subtle light blue color that barely shows up, but the effect is perfect for veins. I laid a peach pencil down on the waterline, and then I'm taking a like deeper red pencil and I'm just shading in the inner portion and the outer portion of the waterline. I've mentioned this like a million times in face-up videos, but I like to add blue around the forehead, the eyes, the nose, and the lips and the chin. And this looks very intense at first, but once you spray it, it dulls down very quickly because MSC darkens everything. I made the eyes orange because I wanted to incorporate that color of the rainbow into the design. So I'm doing a deeper orange into a lighter orange for the eyes. Taking a Q-tip, I tap red pastel onto the middle of the upper and lower lip. To brighten up the waterline and add a highlight, I added a line of beige pencil. I lost a lot of the line that I laid down initially for the eyelid and the wrinkles. You can't really see them because there's so many dark colors on top. So I'm going back over those with a purple pencil just to bring back the definition in that area. To blend the eye color, I went in with corresponding colored pastels and I just tapped that onto the eyes. This just really helps them blend and it makes the gradient a lot smoother. I love me some wrinkly lips, so I'm just dragging a couple lines down the upper and lower lip with a dark red pencil. Now is the time when I start bringing back a lot of the highlights onto the face, since we initially went in with all this shading. So I'm just drawing a couple lines of highlights on the upper and lower lid as well as the lip area. I love adding metallic rose gold watercolor pencil to the waterline, so I just did that on the outer and inner portion of it. To make the eyeballs look a little bit more 3D and round, I added a bit of that light blue Faber-Castell pencil that I love so much for veins underneath the upper lid. I didn't know what color to go in for the eyebrows because she has like a couple colors going on in her hair, but I decided to do purple because she has blue and also pink in her hair, so the combination of that is purple. At this point, I'm doing the most intense highlights on the face. I'm brightening up the white of the eyes, as well as adding some lines of white watercolor around the eyelids. With yellow watercolor, I added a ring around the iris so that there's like a bit of a highlight and like a halo effect in that area. On the left side of the highlight that I put down, I'm actually adding some metallic, very light gold paint. This just makes it so that there is a shiny effect to the eyes and the highlight, and I think it's really pretty. I also went in with a bit of duochrome metallic purple paint and I gave her some eyeliner. For the brow hair, I'm just sketching it in, and I'm doing it kind of wavy like. I'm sketching in each individual brow hair with that purple pencil. Y'all know how to do it to them. I had to add tons of glitter to the face, so I'm taking my back row Pearl-Ex pigment. I'm just putting that all over the face. I also went over the brow hair with a wet purple watercolor. I tapped a little bit of metallic red onto the pupil. To brighten up the eyebrows a little bit, I went in with that duochrome purple metallic watercolor paint that I did the liner with, and I added some duochrome metallic purple eyebrow hair. On to lashes. So I took my Faber-Castell black pencil, and I've mentioned this before in the past, but I really like this pencil because the lead or the watercolor paint or whatever in it is very hard. So that makes it so that it gives very individual, precise lash lines. I go over the lashes with some wet watercolor paint. By the way, I always refer to it as wet watercolor paint. I know that all watercolor paint is wet when you use it, but I'm saying that because normally when I say that, it's because I wet the pencil. And I'm taking watercolor paint directly from it. I did the eye shines how I normally do, but I also added a little heart to them because one of the main aspects of pride is having the right to love who you want to love. With my metallic rose gold watercolor paint, I added a couple of taps of that to the waterline. I do the final step of adding white dots of highlights around the eyes, the lips, and the cheeks. Then we add some Vallejo gloss to the lips, and overall I do really like how this face up turned out. I prefer it. I do still like the rainbowy one, but I think that this one just goes better with the body. On to the Pegasus wings. So I cut out a pattern, and then I'm cutting foam out of that pattern. And I chose to do this instead of like normal craft feathers because one, they are a nightmare. They get everywhere, and they suck working with them. Two, I heard that they pluck the feathers out of the birds while they're still alive, and that just seems horrifying to me. So we are just going to be gluing this foam together in layers to get a sort of layered feathery look. The way I'm doing this is I have a bigger section of feathers and then a smaller section, and I'm going to be attaching them at the middle, sort of similar to how I've made fairy wings in the past, so that they can go up and down, and it makes it so that the feather can extend and get bigger, which you guys will see in a little bit. The foam colors I'm using are a deeper red and then a brighter red. This is just so that there looks like there's more of like a layered effect to it, but the layers do stand out from each other, and it's not just like red on top of red and all of it being the same color. To add detail and shading and highlights and everything, I am using a combination of my OOAK markers as well as acrylic paint. I would highly recommend, if you use markers to detail anything that's going to be near or on top of a doll, to kind of blot it off first, because there can be some bleeding. So definitely just be careful with it and blot it off first. For the highlights that I'm adding with acrylic paint, I'm using a combination of pink and white. I am doing more pink than white though, just because I wanted the white to be kind of reserved for areas that I really want to pop. This is how the wings turned out, and I really, really dig them. I really like painting feathers. This is kind of a pleasant experience. Something that I want to mention, because I feel like you can't really see it very well, or I didn't really showcase it very well, is that, well, you can see it there. The layered effect is on both sides of each one of the 4 pieces of the wings. To make the wings articulated so that they go up and down, I used a wire that I put a loop on the top, as well as a nut and bolt, and I'm basically just kind of threading the wings as well as the wire around that and screwing it into place. I cut the wire down a little bit because it was like way too long with my wire cutters, and then I took a bit of epoxy glue and I put that into the hole that we drilled in like a million years ago and I'm just gluing the wings into the hole. This is how she looks with her head back on and the wings and just all of it together. And I just really prefer it. I think it looks way better than when she had rainbow hair. I didn't like the bolt or the nut or whatever. I think it's the bolt. So I'm covering it up with a gem. Time to finally give her a tail. So I'm just taking a bunch of that yarn that I used on her head, and I'm gonna be taking some glue all and I'm putting that in her little her tail hole. I almost said her butthole. But I'm just taking that, putting some in there, and then I'm basically plugging the yarn into the hole. So her hair looks pretty, but I want to curl it. So I'm going to be taking a metal chopstick and I'm heating it up with my hair straightener, just like pressing it, and then I'm going to be looping the hair around that, and it just gives you some perfect little ringlet curls. And I'm doing that to the hair on her head as well as her tail. Oh my god, she has no clothes. We're like so long into the video, she still has no clothes. I found this rainbow fabric and I was like, let's make her a rainbow dress. So that's what I'm gonna be doing. It's just like has this little heart cut out. I'm hemming it with glue because that is my favorite thing lately. It's just so clean. It's also extremely fast. Like, it's so much faster than hemming it with thread. I wanted this dress to have a little turtleneck, so I sewed a strip of red fabric onto the neckline. I sewed the dress together at the shoulders as well as a bit of mesh fabric onto where the heart is. For sleeves, I wanted her to have poofy sleeves, so I gather stitched the top of the sleeves as well as the bottom of the sleeves. I sewed a little bit of ribbon to the bottom of the sleeves, and then I sewed the sleeves in place. Last but not least, I sewed up the side seam. I sewed 2 clasps onto the back of the dress, and this is what it looks like once it's done and it is accessorized, and I decided that I hate it, which is issue number like 307. So we're gonna be making her a new dress. This one I wanted to be a little bit like lighter because the other one just felt kind of like heavy, I guess. So I'm hemming everything with glue. I sewed a bit of mesh fabric onto the top of the front and the back of the dress. I did the finishing touches of sewing the front and back together at the shoulders as well as the side seam, and then sewing clasps in place, and I accessorized it, and overall I am happier with the outcome, I think, but I'm still not completely happy. This doll was a frustrating mess. But happy Pride, y'all. Happy Pride Part 2. Overall, I'm happy-ish with her. She's aight. I took a couple photos of her with my demon girls that I made for Halloween, so that's kind of cute. I guess these dolls maybe are at 1/8 scale, maybe? Not really sure. After this, I also bought I bought a bouquet of Enchantimals because I'll make a bunch of tiny little headed dolls and Cave Club bodies because I just love the combo. And I love the scale. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about her down below in the comments. Happy Pride again. You know what? I know Pride was last month, but we shouldn't just make like LGBTQ or Pride or Rainbow or whatever dolls once a year. We should make them all year round. Anyway, like this video if you like this video, subscribe, it makes me happy, and I hope you guys are having a beautiful day. Bye!